Just fall through the afternoon. We may pick up an inch or two of snow. Scattered snow showers breezy Thursday, 20 to 25. I'm meteorologist Rob Carolyn.
Next on AM 1480 WLEA, the Newsmaker Show. Here's Ryan O'Neill.
It's 40 degrees right now, which is a good thing because it's icy out there this morning. And we have on our live line Shawn Hogan. Shawn is filling in for Alfred University history professor Gary Ostrower, as Dr. Ostrower was not able to make it today. Shawn, I will not throw all the this day in history facts at you.
Well, that's good. That's good, because I haven't been a history professor for 50 years. So
his sense of history is so good. Anything I throw at him, and I don't tell him which history facts I'm going to throw at him from the long list of this day in history, so there's no way he could prep on that. He does have a great sense of history, Shawn.
Absolutely. Very interesting gentleman, and he is, I'm only filling his slot. I could never dream of equaling his intelligence and his acumen with history, so I'll just take my chances here.
Well, you're good to come on at short notice. Was talking last night, and I did want to start out with National. Was talking with Gary Ostrower last night, and I said to Dr. Ostrower, what do you think of the current political situation? And he told me, and I said he said he disagreed with the president wanting to do a possible emergency declaration. I said I agree with you because I don't want to see a precedent set for that kind of thing with this.
Right. No, and I agree with Gary. This whole thing about this wall, the story changes from moment to moment. You can't get any accurate facts or figures from the president or even his vice president, who's leading the negotiations with the congressional leaders. They've gerrymandered the figures of terrorists, potential terrorists, where the actual figures provided by the Office of Homeland Security said they've stopped 6 potential terrorists at the southern border and 41 at the northern border. Why aren't we building a wall on the northern border? Because the fact that the people coming across the southern border or attempting to come across the southern border are poor, they're people of color, and it kind of plays in Peoria. People, I'll build the wall. There was never any intentions of building the wall. And he knew that Mexico was never going to pay for the wall. This is purely a political stunt, trying to get his base riled up, and it does nothing for the betterment of this country. I think everyone in Congress, and you and I included here as private citizens, want to see border security. But we're so far advanced now. I mean, why build an 8th century or 6th century the Great Wall of China when you have so much technology that you could use to control your southern borders? And that's what they're saying. Yes, we certainly. And if you remember correctly, I want to remember your listeners. Last year, the Congress offered $25 billion, the full amount that the president wanted, but they wanted a deal on DACA. The 750,000 young people that came here as children have grown up here and have gone to school here are just as American as you or I. And they tried to work a deal about DACA, and as the president rescinded the Obama administration DACA law, which is being held in abeyance by the courts, and the president backed off it. They had a deal, and he backed off. And the member of Congress said, it was just on TV yesterday, said it's like negotiating with a kindergartner. Nothing is ever written in stone, and the dynamic completely changes. So, I think the free-thinking, intelligent Americans will see this for what it is. And unfortunately, the collateral are the 800,000 federal employees, the farmers that aren't getting their subsidies, the people that may not get their SNAP benefits, and the list goes on and on and on. There is human collateral here, and people are suffering because of this 17, 18-day government shutdown. And it's got to come to a head. It's a national disgrace, and it's ridiculous.
Shawn Hogan, you mentioned Governor Andrew Cuomo in your answer there. Governor Cuomo just sworn in for the third time in office. And I do want to get to minimum wage and how that's affected locally. But first, your thoughts on Governor Cuomo being having his third inauguration there.
Well, I think, the governor has done an outstanding job for New York State. Obviously, it's evident that his popularity in upstate New York is not the best, and I think for a number of reasons. Number one is that there's a natural tendency to think that it's an upstate downstate thing, when by far, if you look at the statistics and the financial figures, upstate benefits much more from having New York City and the surrounding metropolitan counties, in New York State than the two New Yorks. And that's kind of been promulgated, the two New Yorks, by opposition politicians over the years. And I remember Randy Kuhl and Don Davidson pushing for two New Yorks. And it's almost like the wall. It's a divisive thing. It doesn't make sense. We're all one state, but it does provide a divisive moment for the voters to think about. Well, it's us versus them, and it's not true. And but another thing that I think that hurts the governor's popularity upstate was the SAFE Act. And that's another emotional issue. The SAFE Act has not, I don't think, hurt anybody. It hasn't hurt the hunters. It hasn't hurt the recreational gun owners. It was common sense legislation. I don't agree with how it was pushed through the legislature, but I think it was a political decision that we had to pass it then, or it wasn't going to pass. And so then you tweak it over time. And they have done that, limiting the 7 bullets in the munitions chamber. That's been ruled unconstitutional. It goes back to 10 bullets and things like that. So, but all those things have added up to the governor's unpopularity in upstate. But if you really look through the figures, he's done more for upstate New York than any governor in my 32 years in office, and now as a private citizen. We wouldn't be building a $68 million hospital without the governor taking a personal interest. We wouldn't be occupying a $21 million medical office building. Right there at that location in the town of Hornellsville, the old Kmart Plaza, you have adaptive reuse going on. You have a tremendous asset to our community, a medical village and a hospital, all being built with the assistance of the state government and the fact that the governor took a keen interest in Hornell, New York. It's amazing. He came to Hornell and presented a $30 million check to assist Alstom in getting the Amtrak contract. All of that goes unnoticed. All the good he's done goes unnoticed, but they want to focus on the false narrative of two New Yorks. It's us versus them, and this SAFE Act thing, which is being driven. Now it's been in effect for how many years now, and they're still driving to get it repealed. why hasn't been repealed? Why hasn't the Republican Senate at the time taken up the mantle? Because they know it was good policy. So I think the governor has done remarkably well for us, and I think he's going to continue to do remarkably well for us in his third term. And I just look forward to seeing what he is able to accomplish with a united legislature.
Now, Shawn, minimum wage just went up to $15 in New York City. Do you have a sense of what it did around here?
Yeah, but we're up in Western New York. I think ours, if I remember correctly, goes to $11.50 right now in January, and over time it'll go up to $15 per hour. But I think from what I've been seeing with area employers, fast food restaurants, and everything else, is that they've all come to accept that they have to pay more because there is a shortage of labor for those jobs, fast food and in entry level positions, and so in many cases they're paying more than minimum wage because the market demands it. The job market demands it. So obviously, I'm sure it's a pinch on employers when it first comes into being, but I think it's the right thing to do. If people are out there working 40 hours a week, they ought to have a living wage to show for it.
Now, one of the things the governor wants to do this year is make the 2% property tax cap a permanent thing. Did you have any thoughts on that?
I support it. As a local government official, I supported it. I lived with it. I thought it could be tweaked to the benefit of the local governments without damaging the intent of the legislation. I think the legislation is worked. It's really kind of slowed down the growth of property tax burden in New York State. And, we have to be honest with ourselves. The property tax burden is New York State was what makes us number 1 or 2 in the nation or number 3 in the nation. It's not the state tax, income tax and things of that nature. It is the property tax. Now, many people will say, well, the property tax is driven by unfunded mandates, and in a sense, some of that is true. They didn't do enough to address unfunded mandates by the state, particularly at the county level about Medicaid funding. They have capped, the Governor Cuomo capped the amount that counties are expected or legally asked to give. But it's still a growing number, especially with the expansion of Medicaid, for health insurance. So I think that should be addressed at some point, reducing that burden on the counties. We're one of the only states in the nation that demand participation from county government. So I think that's an issue across the board for metropolitan and rural counties. But for the most part, I agree with the governor's policies and the intent. Like any legislation, not all of it's good, and it can be tweaked and it can be amended, and that's what we look for.
We're going to take a quick break, then we'll be back with Shawn Hogan from the Hornell Industrial Development Agency. We'll talk a little more state, and then we'll talk more local issues as well. Stay with us.
The Ryan Agencies, your local, independent insurance agencies. The Ryan Agency supports your hometown. Unlike online insurance companies, the good people at the Ryan Agency live and invest here, annually supporting many local organizations. Contact the Ryan Agencies today, your hometown supporter and source for all things insurance.
Insurance protection you can rely on. The Ryan Agency.
Meteorologist Rob Carolyn with us now. Rob, most local schools are on a 2-hour delay today.
And that's a wise decision, Brian, because now the temperatures have come up in the area well above freezing. The salt on the road should do the job, clear things off. But as we had talked about yesterday, we knew last night was going to get pretty slick as that warm air came in the loft over the top of the colder air at the surface. That ends up producing liquid as opposed to snow. It hits the ground, it freezes, causes all types of problems. Now, we're going to be okay today, but we may have similar problems tonight, Brian, because we're going to head in the opposite direction. Rather than getting warmer, we're going to have a tendency to get colder. Today we should be fairly cloudy with scattered showers. We'll be up close to 50. And then tonight we'll look for any rain showers to change to snow showers after midnight. It'll be breezy. We'll fall back to 30 to 35. As the colder weather moves in tomorrow, we'll notice that temperatures go down from 30 to 35 tomorrow morning into the 20s. And they'll probably pick up an inch or two of snow. Scattered snow showers, breezy, cold tomorrow night, 20 to 25. And we are into some of the coldest air we've seen since Thanksgiving. It'll be cloudy, breezy Thursday with scattered snow showers, 20 to 25. Will stay cold into the weekend. Brian, sunrise was at 7:39 this morning. Sunset tonight at 4:56. Day length now, 9 hours, 16 minutes. We've actually picked up 11 minutes since December 21st.
I'm back with Democrat Shawn Hogan. Shawn, refresh my memory. Are you still Steuben County Democratic Chairman?
Yes.
Okay. And you're also with the Hornell Industrial Development Agency now as a consultant. Shawn Hogan, a couple more issues, state issues. One of the things Governor Andrew Cuomo wants to do, and I only bring this up, it's not a local issue, but it has to do with the MTA in New York City. And I always kind of follow those stories because of the number of train cars that are built around here locally. It says the governor wants to pass congestion prices to fund the MTA. What's that about?
What that is that people who drive insist on driving into metropolitan New York City, that there would be a fee to do so. And then that fee would be used to fund, for the privilege of driving into Manhattan, that fee would be used to fund mass transit. That's been an issue, and has one been talked about for years in New York City to reduce the congestion, the congestion and the car traffic, reduce the carbon footprint. I think it's good policy. It's always been a tough sell to the legislature around New York. It would be another funding source other than taxes or on the people in the suburban counties around metropolitan New York City. And it makes sense because it would reduce the number of traffic into the city for people going to work there. And it does make sense, particularly when there's so many public transportation options in New York between buses and trains and cabs. So if you want to drive in the city, you can, but you're going to pay a premium to do so. That's always been the proposed policy, but it's never gotten too far. It's been talked about for years.
Do you have a sense, Shawn, of who drives in New York City as far as their economic class goes?
Yeah, probably. There's a lot of people that probably, in their estimation, couldn't afford to drive, or feel that it's cheaper to drive in rather than to take the Metro North or the Long Island Railroad and subways. So yeah, there's arguments on either side, but what you have is a lot of car services too. A lot of executives in New York City will take car services that will drive all over Manhattan, and that's where I think there's an overabundance of Lincoln Town cars and Cadillacs driving the executives to and fro around Manhattan. I think that's where the most money would be made.
And we're down to the last couple of minutes. Locally, anything interesting you could tell us IDA-wise, Shawn?
Well, there's a lot going on. As you know, as Alstom goes ever closer to starting production on the high-speed rail, the Acela Liberty, and We expect employment to be on the uptick, particularly in the blue collar area, as they continue to hire engineers and contract administrators. Right now, we're working to vacate the Trikina Tile building. As you know, that company was foreclosed upon, and we do have a local company, Strobel Supply Incorporated, that is going to be purchasing the building and moving their operation there and expanding and creating some more employment. So TTA has also recently announced an expansion of about 6,000 square feet, and they'll be expanding and hiring about 30 more employees. So, the beat goes on as far as Alstom go, but one of the things here I'm working on is that last year I was able to get 2 distressed census tracts, give them eligibility and determined to be opportunity zones, which is a program that was created under the Federal Tax Cut Act of December of 17. And these the federal government is supposed to be releasing the details, but they're supposed to be very good tools for development. And a lot of our areas, undeveloped areas of the city, are in the opportunity zones. In fact, there's only 2 opportunity zones that got assessed census tax in Steuben County, and Hornell has both of them. So we're well positioned to use those benefits. We just worked with Park Grove Realty with the city, and they put in their application for the Erie Station apartments, which would be middle and moderate income housing units at the Shawmut. They would be, the rents would be affordable for those making between $45,000 and $50,000 a year. They'd be probably less than half than the market rate apartments. Not that they're going to be any less nice, but they're going to be for the lower, the moderate to middle income individuals. So, and they're able to do that because they apply for tax credits through the State Division of Housing and Community Renewal. So we'll wait and see if that approval comes in May. The Marion Rohr building is about to get underway as far as some more market rate apartments, and we're working with several developers on some other issues in the city. So, working with the city planning people and the mayor and this office, the IDA, there's, I think, a lot of good things in the works.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Shawn Hogan, and thank you for filling in for Dr. Ostrower.
You can never fill in for him. You can just kind of take up his space.
Thank you so much, Shawn.
Okay, bye-bye.
AM 1480 WLEA Hornell.
Well, these are exciting times for you California residents.